Welcome to the Green Flag Attraction Podcast, a relationship podcast designed to help you uncover your red flag addiction
and create your own green flag style attraction. Episode 10.
We are
I'm so
in
excited.
Double digits, people. We're actually super stoked about that if you can't tell. And
really
today's episode, we are going to talk about at love's crossroads.
Deciding the fate of your relationship. Do you hold on? Do you let go? Do you fight for love?
It's
Or
all
do
about
you
navigating
let it go?
decision. Exactly like you said. Do you fight for love or do you throw in the towel and move on?
Oh, we have a lot of experience.
This is pretty juicy. This is going to get
a lot
fun.
of experience holding on and letting go.
We do.
We've both been married twice, and so there were a lot of conversations and inner battles for me in those conversations.
Yeah.
So let's get into it.
Yeah. And I can start with just giving a little background on my, my thought, my view into this.
Okay.
When I was younger, right, is I was really raised and taught when things get hard, you just kind of cut your battles, pack your bags, and move on to the next best thing. And that was literally how I was raised and how what my programming was, my patterns, right? And I realized that did well for me up until I was about 20, 21 years old. Then I finally realized that was no longer going to dictate my life, and that I was going to be, more in control of, just navigating those decisions.
Mm-hmm.
So let's talk about, what do you do? Like if you're in if you're in a crossroads, right? If you're sitting there figuring out, what do I do? Do I leave? Do I stay? What's your value? What do you want to give people?
Well, first off, you need to figure out what you want and what you need, because what are your needs are being met? What needs are being unmet? What are your deal breakers? If you're at a crossroads, something's not working. And so figuring out what's not working is the first step. And once you know what that step is, remember, you're taking personal responsibility. How can you contribute to that change? Because it's not going to the other person at the crossroads saying, okay, these are all my wants and needs. This is how you're not meeting them. If you want this relationship to work, this is what you need to do. Like word vomit. Responsibility starts with you figuring out what do you want? What are your deal breakers? Because for my first two marriages, and why I stress so important, is you need to know what you want before you get into the relationship. I didn't really know what I want. I didn't know what my deal breakers were. And then I found myself in too deep and feeling like I didn't have a choice to get out because I was already married. And so if you're not married yet, do this before you get married. Know what your deal breakers are and have that conversation with your significant other. And if you're already in a serious relationship, if you're already married and, it's a little bit harder to just be like, all right, sayonara, what does that look like to you? Yeah.
And like you said, it's understanding what your wants and needs are, right?
Mm-hmm.
And when it comes down to a deal breaker, I guess we have to elaborate on what a deal breaker is, right? Like there's certain things that I know in our relationship or in any relationship I won't tolerate, and same thing with you, right? And that's really what our viewers need to realize for themselves is, what are those things that you absolutely do not tolerate, or what type of behaviors or what type of patterns is something that is a deal breaker for you, right? For some people, it's drug use. For some people, it's alcohol. For some people, it's physical, verbal, emotional abuse, whatever it is, right? You have to find out what your deal breakers are. And just because it's a deal breaker for you doesn't mean it's going to be the same, or other people are going to align with that. Right? You could have a deal breaker that's completely outrageous to someone else, right? Like, this person eats with their mouth open. That's just a deal breaker. I can't do it, right? It just,
chew too loud.
Yeah, they chew too loud. I just can't do it. It's gross. And that's that's a value of yours. It's a deal breaker for you. So you just have to really understand what it is, identify it. And once you know what those deal breakers are, you said it correctly, right? Is then you have to really sit down with your current partner or partner to be, wife, husband, whoever that person is, and communicate those things with them.
Yeah. Also, communicating what they are, and also having the confidence to know that your deal breakers aren't silly. for so long, I had deal breakers, and I put them off to the side because I thought they were silly. And so if you have deal breakers like she chews with her mouth like open and like that, I can't do that.
I
That's
think, well,
okay.
and I don't mean to cut you off, but I think everyone wants to know what your silly deal breakers were.
Oh, I see. Okay. I'll use the drugs, for example. So I didn't have a deal breaker that if someone did drugs, that wasn't a deal breaker for me before, because I wanted to be like the open, the accepting, non-judgmental person. Like being non-judgmental is a high value to me. And I put that above, honestly, my safety sometimes. And so I think once I realized like my value of being non-judgmental and being accepting of people is putting me in dangerous situations, I had the confidence to say, okay, this isn't silly. This is actually a real deal breaker. And that is a real deal breaker for some people. Let me think of other silly ones as we talk through. You put me on the spot. That was just the first thing that came to my head. And I guess that's not silly because there's a lot of people that would want to do drugs. But for me, I found myself in questionable circumstances because I just,
Yeah, I agree.
And now won't be with someone that does drugs because I've learned that is a deal breaker for me.
There we go. So you learn what your wants and needs are. You learn what your deal breakers are. But also and that's one thing that we glazed over a little bit is, so you understand what your deal breakers are, right? What you don't want in a relationship, but what are the top things that you need in a relationship, right? What are those things that you want? That's also something that I believe that people really need to sit down and analyze is, what do you want in a relationship, right? So you came up with your deal breakers, and I encourage everyone, like we said in the previous episode, to sit down with pen and paper and really outline, like really take the time to outline what are those deal breakers, but what are those needs? What do I need in a relationship?
Yeah. What's your relationship wish list look like? And if you're having a hard time creating a relationship wish list, my little hack is to sit with feelings. So maybe instead of making a list of things that you want that person to do, make a list of how you want that relationship to make you feel. And okay, so I want to feel this way. What are actions that can be done for me to make that feeling happen? So, instead of, I want my partner to buy me flowers. Well, the real feeling that you want is you want to feel appreciated. You want to feel loved. You want to feel thought about.
Right.
And so it maybe isn't about the flowers, it's about the feelings associated to that. So if you're struggling with making your relationship wish list because could be a million billion things, it's kind of overwhelming, just start with, how do I want to feel in a relationship? What do I want to experience? Like, what are those? Like, I love being challenged, so I want to experience challenge in a relationship. That might not vibe with some people. So figure out what the feelings are for you.
Yep, 100%. And I know one thing in our relationship, right, was when it comes to needs, right? Like one of my top values is quality time, right? So for me, it's spending time, and for you, the quality time isn't it's not your top value.
It is not.
Right. So she had to sit down once and say, okay, like, what do you need? Right. What do you want and what do you need? Like, how much time, like, what does that look like for you? Right. Do we need a date night? Do you need 2 date nights? How much time do you need to feel, fulfilled in a way? Yeah. And we were able to sit down and really have those talks, but we wouldn't have been able to have that if we wouldn't have sat down and did the work in order to do that.
Because asking the question, sometimes people stop and they don't take the question far enough. So your needs weren't being met. I knew your love language was quality time. We weren't having enough quality time. So I was trying to feed quality time to you, and it wasn't the way that you wanted it. And I was seeing that. I was frustrated because I thought I was giving you quality time. You were frustrated because you weren't getting it in the way that you wanted. And so instead of continuing to throw things at you, I took it a step further and asked, okay, I know you want quality time, but what does that look like to you? What do you need? Because some people might need 3 dates a week. Someone else might need 1. So what does that specifically look like to you?
If you are a busy entrepreneur and you have a family or whatnot, that's even more critical for you to find out what do you need? What does that time look like? If you have kids and you're working 12-hour days and you want to make a relationship of one of your top priorities or a priority, what does that look like for you? How much time do you need to put into your wife? How much time does your wife need to put into you? What is it going to take for the relationship to work, right? And you just have to really sit down and do the self work and the inner thinking to really find out, what do I need?
Yeah.
Right. And then
knowing whatever you want is totally okay, because like you said earlier, someone maybe is working 12 hours a week. They should not marry someone who wants a man to be home, work a 9 to 5 and be home for dinner every night. And, you value work above family. And I remember you coming to me like, is that okay with you? And I laughed. I'm like, I know that already. I know that about you. And so having those conversations and knowing it's okay if your partner wants to work 12 hours a day, that's the value to them. If that's something that they want, if that's not something that you want, go find someone else, because there's nothing wrong with that.
And that takes us to really the next juicy and uncomfortable part of the conversation for a lot of people is, so you analyze what your wants and needs are, right? So you write that down. You see what your deal breakers are. You communicate that with your partner. Now what do you do? Right? That isn't the magic sauce, right? You don't just communicate it and now you said it and everything's going to change and it's going to be awesome. The next thing you have to do is actually set a boundary. But the thing with set boundaries is there has to be consequences and you have to actually follow through. Or it's just it's a threat.
It's a wish.
Yeah, it's a wish.
Boundaries without consequences are a wish. I learned that in therapy, and that changed my life.
So give them an example. Let's give them an example of what that means.
So if you create a boundary and that person, like a specific boundary. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. So your partner goes out every night after work and grabs drinks with friends, and you feel neglected. You want a partner, not this specific person. A value to you is to spend quality time with a partner after work. You want to build a life, a family, a relationship. You want to be with someone that doesn't party after work.
Right. You want to cook, watch a show, whatever that looks like for you.
Yeah, like that. You value that more over partying. So you sit your partner down. I don't know. That's like asking your partner to change. Like a boundary is more about like you feeling safe. So I'll use one that I used for myself in the past. We'll use drinking. Okay. I don't feel safe around you when you drink. So I would appreciate it if you don't drink around me. And if you do drink around me, then I'm going to leave. Okay. Or if you come over or I come to your house, vice versa, or if we're out and about, I'm going to leave if there's alcohol. If that person has alcohol and you don't leave, that wasn't a boundary. That was a wish. And so then that person knows that you don't respect your boundary. So there's no reason for them to respect it. And so the hard part of setting boundaries isn't actually setting the boundaries. It is enforcing the boundaries. That is the hardest part, because that is where the rubber hits the road. That is where the other person is going to have to either change their behavior or you have to leave. I mean, something has to happen here. And the follow through is the only thing that is going to save the relationship, because if there's no follow through, the cycle is going to continue over and over and over.
Yeah. And unfortunately, most people don't have enough self-love or compassion for themselves to follow through with those consequences.
I did it for a long time.
Right?
I mean, it is super, super scary. It's vulnerable. And especially when you're in the relationship with someone, there's so much more on the line and at risk because you're already in the relationship with the person. It's a little bit different when you're talking about dating or, putting your wants and needs lists out there on the front, like we've talked in other episodes. But when you're in a marriage with someone, it's not as easy as like, hey, I don't like that you do this. Here's the boundary. Like, you better like make me feel safe. It's not black and white like that. And so, it takes the navigation of you practicing and not saying that the boundaries always going to have the consequences, but the more you practice and you set these little boundaries and you honor yourself in the process is huge. And when I started actually enforcing my boundaries, I gained so much confidence because I knew that I was staying true to the word and the commitment that I made to myself. It no longer became about the other person, and it became about me respecting myself enough to be a woman of my word and to stay true. And I heard this quote this past week that I thought was gold, and it was, you can tell how much a woman loves herself by the man that she chooses. And you can say that for men as well. You can see how much a person loves himself by the partner that they choose, because from the relationships that I witness where there is so much love, there is so much self-respect, there are boundaries, and there are rules to the relationship, and there's that mutual respect. And in the relationships where there is the disrespect, and there isn't that connection, there isn't that happiness, it's the lack of boundaries.
Yeah, 100%. I couldn't agree more. And that takes us back to episode 9 when we talk about insecurities. And for me, that's what would happen when I would set boundaries, and that's why I wouldn't stick by. I wouldn't stick with consequences. Right, there was no follow through, because I would set a boundary, and I'm like, oh yeah, that's I'm in the moment, I'm upset, and if you do this again, if you drink again, and if you act like this, I'm over, I'm done, I'm leaving. But then there would be no follow through with that, because for me, the insecurities would come up. Oh well, if you leave, then you're abandoned. Like, you just abandoned yourself. Like you made her abandon you by you. So I would stop myself. And that was before. I used to see it as a superpower growing up in early adulthood of being a chameleon, right? What I mean by that is I was so used to being in uncomfortable situations, or situations that didn't go the way I wanted them to or whatnot, that I would just find a way to be comfortable in any situation. So if I didn't agree with it, I would just find a way to get over it and agree with it, right? I would just push it over. It didn't matter.
Like a trauma response.
Yeah, I would mold with it. Like, okay, well, I want my own quality time, but this person doesn't agree with that, so that's fine. My needs don't matter. This person's more important, so I'm just going to make this right, or put a Band-Aid on it.
Well, if you were raised in a traditional household like I was, being self-sacrificing was like a badge of honor. And it was so difficult for me to change that narrative, for me to believe that it was okay to put myself first, and that being self-sacrificing actually ruins your relationship, because you're dishonoring yourself, and you're putting another person on a pedestal at the expense of you. And when you do that, you're no longer able to give the best of yourself to your relationships. You're giving the worst of yourself. And so recognizing that being self-sacrificing is not actually good, it gives a confidence to just say, yes, I'm worth it. Yes, I deserve this. And to tell your partner, and to be able to also expect that from the other partner. Like, I don't want you to give to me first. I want you to take care of you, because when you're putting yourself first, you're happier. You show up more confident, and then that overflows into me. And so the narrative that putting yourself first is selfish is just so bananas to me, because I have experienced relationships where I put myself first and I put the other person first, and where the other person puts them first, or where they put me first. And every single time when each person puts themselves first, it makes the other person better. And I so appreciate that about you, because you do commit to putting yourself first. And I feel that, and that level of confidence, it allows me to be able to rely on you, because I know that you got me. You're not tired. You're not exhausted because you're giving to all of these other people. You're reliable and you're strong because you take care of yourself. And allowing your partner to just put themselves first and getting yourself off the pedestal is so empowering. I used to want to be on put me first. Like, I should be, like, I'm the best. Why are you not doing this, and this? Like, and now it's just like, please take care of you. I'll take all the extras from you being awesome.
Well, look, you can only do so much yourself for so long before you just break down, or it's exhausting. You can't do it anymore. I see it time and time with business associates and with friends, where they're trying to do everything, right? They're trying to be the man of the house, take care of the family, run the business, be the friend, run the marathon, do all these things. And it's they can only sustain that for so long before ultimately one thing or all gives out. Right. So it's really understanding that. And I wasn't always that way. Right. I definitely would I was programmed to put everyone else first. Right. And I would hide it under being hyper focused on myself. Like something my mother would say, it's not all about Ian, but really it was after that I took that to an extreme, and that was my my internal dialogue was it's not all about me. So then I made it all about everyone else, and I put
you've never shared that with me before.
Yeah, so then
that
I
makes
made
so much sense.
Yeah, so then I put it on everyone else. So then I would focus on making sure, because as long as everyone else around me was happy, how could I not be happy? But if people around me weren't happy, then why did I deserve to be happy? Right? Because these people mean more. So I would sacrifice everything in my life, even early in our relationship, right? And still do from time to time, because it's a work in progress. You're always working. Is I would focus on, okay, I'm going to not do the things I need to do because this person is struggling, or this is happening in their life, or this is going on. So let me focus on them first. Because if I focus on them and they're happy, everything's going to be good in my life. When in reality, like you said, if you focus on you first, you have so much more empathy and energy and tolerance, and you have so much more to give because your tank's so much more full.
I want to go back just to note, because I think it's so important. And if I heard you correctly, you're saying that as an adult, you put other people first because as a child, your mom told you it's not all about Ian.
Right.
So
because I was raised.
Listen, this is why I say, like, this is just so good. Like, this is why hill I will die on. Get curious with your triggers. Get curious about why you do what you do. Not even if you're not triggered, just your daily activities or how you're showing up in your relationship. Why are you doing that? When I just started questioning what I was doing, I came to the realization that so many of my beliefs were just what I was raised with. And then I was able to question, does this serve me? Do I want to believe this? Do I want it to not be all it's not all about Ian? Okay, well, what did that mean then? And what does it mean now? Am I choosing to live with this belief? Okay, it's not all about me. So do I want to keep putting everyone else first? Or do I recognize that, wow, that was something that I was told my whole life? I can see how maybe it was said at a time in a different perspective. I'm an adult now, and now I'm choosing that this no longer serves me, and I can put myself first because it's a healthy thing to do.
Yeah, and from my programming, I took it from one stream to another, right? And that's typically what I do with most things. If I'm not working out, then I go balls deep into macros and working out and programming, and it's that was my old programming, right? And that's what I did in this instance, whereas it was all about me. I was a single child, or a single parent, single child. It was all around me. She definitely positioned it to be all around me growing up. And then that came to be kind of a common narrative or something that I would hear consistently was, oh, it's all about Ian. It's not about Ian. You're not number one. It's not all about you. And then going into all the way up until I was 21, I got in a lot of trouble, made a lot of poor decisions, did a lot of things that I'm not proud of because of that narrative, because I was focused on me. I didn't care about anything else. I didn't care what happened. I was focused on the moment, having fun and making memories and experiences. Right. And then I went to the extreme of, it being all about me caused me to do these things. So I need to flip it and put it on everyone else. I need to focus on everyone else. And then I got into, a marriage, and that was the main focus. I was hyper focused on making sure that one person was okay, and I put off career opportunities and opportunities to really grow myself personally and financially to make sure this other person was okay, because that was a loop that was playing in my head, right? That internal talk was, it's not all about Ian, it's not all about Ian, it's not all about Ian. So I hyper focused on, it's about
everyone else.
Yeah.
Wow, that's really powerful. So if you have an internal dialogue, just get curious. Like, where does it come from? Does it still serve me? And to kind of wrap up this episode, our last little nugget, once you figure out what you need, once you figure out your deal breakers and communicate it and you have your boundaries, the last step is just knowing that you're worth it and believing that you're worth it, because setting Boundaries, especially when they're new, can feel very scary. And if you are surrounded by people who haven't respected you in the past, means that they probably will not respect you in the future. And it can feel extremely vulnerable to present your wants and needs to someone. And I just want to put this in here as a reminder to have proper expectations, because disappointment is unmet expectation. And so when you have these conversations, have realistic expectations, because like this isn't about you asking the other person to change. This is about you taking personal responsibility and saying, this is how I'm showing up. This is what is important to me. This is what I need from you to make this relationship work. And like, I want to make this work. And if it can't, you have to be willing to walk away, because if you are not willing to walk away and have that follow through, like you were saying, it's the same cycle is going to continue. And so knowing that you're worth it and believing you're worth it is like the most important step, because if you don't believe you're worth it, you're not going to accept you're going to accept bad behavior. You have to believe that you're worthy and you deserve stellar, amazing, incredible behavior from your partner. And so whatever you need to do to make yourself feel that, whether it may be affirmations, self-talk, whatever, read a book, whatever you need to do, like layer on the belief that you are worth it, because you 100% are.
Yeah, 100%. And there's one bit of advice I can give anyone is, like you said, know you're worth it. And if you don't love yourself, how can you expect someone else to love you?
Mm-hmm.
Right? So you have to really, that was one thing that I was blessed to have as a child, was my mother poured into me. I thought I was the best. I was the shit growing up. I was the best at sports. I was the man. Like, my mom just really poured into me to love myself and how much she loved me. Right. So I've been blessed to just kind of carry that through life, but not everyone, and actually a majority of people don't have that blessing. Mm-hmm. Right. Or they weren't taught those skills when they were younger. So it's really important to, find love for yourself and spend time with yourself. And if you go from relationship to relationship to relationship and you haven't taken time, like we both took a period of time in between relationships to really focus on ourselves, get familiar with ourselves, love ourselves, ground ourselves before we decided to jump into something else. Mm-hmm. And that was probably, I know I'm speaking for both of us, but that's probably one of the best things we could have done
100%.
In order to manifest and create what we've created, because that wasn't typically our pattern from before.
Not at all.
Right. So it's take the time, even if it's lonely, and it's going to be hard, and you have to sit in the pain, as they say, but take the time to really understand who you are and have love for yourself before you can go out there and, have a truly successful relationship.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I saw this, I think it was a TikTok this past week, where a girl went on a date and the guy asked her, he's like, who else is competing? Like, what other guys are on the roster? Like, who else is competing for me? And she looked at him and she goes, you're not in competition with anyone else. You're in competition with me, because I love my alone time. I value myself. I respect myself. And if you want to come into my life and you're expecting me to share your life with me, you have to offer me what I offer me. And I freaking loved that, because when you take the time and you create a life where you are not dependent and relying on someone else to make you okay, or to love you, or to give you validation, or to make you feel good about yourself. When you learn the skills to gift yourself all of those beautiful gifts, not only are you giving it to yourself, so you're not taking and expecting that from your partner, but you're also able to give that to your partner even so much more, because you can't give something away that you don't already have. And so I just wanted to say that little nugget, because I thought that was so cool when you were saying, like, fall in love with yourself, have your alone time. And our alone time was, my alone time was so beautiful, because when I met you, you were the first relationship where I had ever taken time to myself, where I had taken that break, I had done the work, I'd never done that before. And it was the first time where I was dating with intention, and I loved my life. I really did. And I still love my life with you. It's obviously shifted, but I wasn't looking like, I feel like all the other times I was looking for my puzzle piece, like, find your puzzle piece. And it was the first time where I was just like, I'm a complete puzzle. I'm looking for someone to like, I'm looking for another puzzle to like, who also is whole. I mean, it was so beautiful. Yeah.
Yeah, but we also allow each other to experience and live our lives, right? Because like, for example, you're going out of town to do one of the one of your top values and support family, right? Travel, see family, see friends, see the little ones. And in that same time, I'm going to be going out of country for a business trip. And we're, you know, and that's totally cool with both of us.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like we allow each other, we know that life happens, things are going on, and, you know, like go do what you need to do in order to, you know, advance yourself or, you know, live in your values.
And when you have that level of independence before you meet your person, it allows you to continue that independence in the relationship with them as well. Because there was a lot of anxiety for me around independence in past relationships because of some trauma. And so I show up so differently with you around the independence piece because I've done that work and I know what independence is like separate from a partner, and I hadn't really experienced that before. And so now we can do these trips, we can take the time apart, and there isn't that anxiety, there isn't that stress that had come before from not understanding or not being able to navigate that independence because I'd never really done it before.
Yeah, there is no expectation that, oh, I have to take this person with me, or I'm going to experience this thing and they're going to feel this way, so I can't do that. Because I know people. I've been personally in a relationship to where I sacrificed trips, I sacrificed doing things in the beginning because the other person didn't agree with it, didn't align with it. And that's something that both of us, you know, we accept that, hey, you travel to see family, you do things with friends, I travel for work. Sometimes we do those things together. If it matches up, right, and irons out, then cool. If not, there's no hard feelings. Yeah. So, but that comes down to, you know, knowing you're worth it and loving yourself, right? We have to love ourselves and know we're worth it in order to feel confident enough to go and do those things on our own. Yeah. So that's why you have to realize, you know, if you're in a relationship, right, and you decide you're at a crossroads, it's doing those 4 things, right? It's finding out what your wants and needs are, communicating and setting boundaries, but also consequences and following through on those consequences, right? Knowing you're worth it and love yourself.
Yeah. I mean, that's really the whole package in a little bow.
Perfect. Well, thank you for tuning in to episode 10, Double Digits. You know, we're bringing the heat. We hope you're getting a lot of value out of this. So if you are, you know, drop a like, hit the comment section, hit the subscribe. Let us know what you want from us, if there's anything else we can add in, if we can answer any questions, or if you'd like to challenge our views or our thoughts.
Yeah,
we would love that.
Your feedback. Yeah.
Perfect.
All right. See you next week.